Hello and welcome to the sixth virtual offering of Movement Possible. My name is Blair, and I'm offering these classes through Berkshire Yoga, Dance, and Fitness. And I'm so grateful that you're joining in today. I should say that the classes are being offered generously and freely through Berkshire Yoga, Dance, and Fitness. And if you're able and willing to support, you can do that at the website, supportbydf.com, through a financial donation if you're willing and able. And again, if you're joining this class for the first time or repeated time, your participation is a gift, and I am grateful personally, as well as the extended community of movers. I think that when we move in a good spirit, we're sending love beyond ourselves. So thank you for participating in that way today. As I mentioned, this class is called Movement Possible, and it's a class that is exploring some of the foundational patterns that we all learned to do fundamental human movement. So some of these patterns that I was first introduced to in a class called Movement Fundamentals, or curriculum rather, with a wonderful teacher named Jane Hawley. And I've been fortunate to have many wonderful teachers through my life, and have all influenced and inspired me in different ways. And the book that we used for Jane's class was called Making Connections, one of the books called Making Connections by Peggy Hackney. And this book lists and describes some of these patterns: breath, body half, core-distal, upper-lower, and several more. And we've been reviewing those patterns through this class, remembering them, reconnecting to them, and working with rhythm, repatterning. And so that's kind of the arc of the class. And today, rather than introduce a new pattern, we'll go back and review all the patterns that I've taught so far. And if this is your first time joining in this class, that's wonderful. You don't need to have been here for the other classes. And if you are a repeated attendee, then this will also hopefully be a really integrative experience to just walk through what we've done so far. So let's see here if I said everything. Just if you could have a notebook and something to write with, doesn't have to be a notebook, could just be some blank paper and some markers, or some fun thing to write with, that would be great. And so I'll give you a moment to gather those supplies. And if you already have those things with you, you can just allow yourself to settle into your space and this moment before our class begins, or as our class is beginning. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to gather any supplies, writing utensils that you might need for the class, the journal, and some pens and pens or markers, pencil. And before we get into more physical exploration, we can just begin by taking a moment to appreciate our body and mind in this moment. Just acknowledge where you're at, how you're feeling, and just take some time to connect to yourself and consider if you have anything that's calling your attention within yourself, to just listen to it, to pay more attention. Perhaps you are dealing with an injury or some kind of illness, or perhaps you're feeling really great. That can also be a time to pay attention, and every time is a time, but when you're feeling extra well, to really notice and appreciate that time. And as you're doing that, you can allow your breath to come and go in its own rhythm. And just take some time to recommit to self-love and self-care, and as best as you can to have self-acceptance in this moment, in this class, in this time. And all of these things are definitely a process. So here we are in the process. Just allow your breath to come and go. You can close your eyes if you'd like for this time, if that helps you to tune into your inner self. And if you need to shift into a more comfortable position, just going to take a few minutes to be with ourselves and acknowledge anything that needs attention within yourself. Just taking some time to recommit or refocus so that you're ready for the class and prepared to take care of yourself during this class and beyond. And all that we can do is our best with that. Can notice your breath coming, going. You might notice your heartbeat. You can allow the eyes to soften, whether your eyes are closed or open. You can allow your eyes to soften in towards the back of your head. And also might allow your throat to soften. And one way to do that is to just let your tongue also drop down and back as you inhale, like this. It's one way to get a deep breath. You can just do that once or twice. You don't have to continue to do that, but just allow yourself to feel a fullness of breath. You can notice where your breath is traveling in your body. And if you can, just allow that to expand, allow your breath to expand further than you thought possible, perhaps a little bit further. Allowing your breath to come and go on its own time. Just allowing yourself to settle into this moment and into this class. You can allow your jaw to soften. Sometimes I like to give myself a little massage on my jaw with my fingertips, and just allow your jaw to hang open a little bit. Or move it back and forth. Make a sound if that feels good. Just allow yourself to relax into this moment as best as you can. You can let your shoulders drop away from your ears. And let the back of your skull lift a bit. Sometimes I also like to put my fingertips behind my ears and find that bony landmark behind my ears and just give yourself a little massage and perhaps a little lift. and you can allow your eyes to open and if they were closed. And so we will begin this class by just taking a walk through, well, the arc of the class actually, we'll be taking a walk through the patterns that we have reviewed so far, and hopefully creating a little, a dance of your own through this process. So just to recap, in this class so far, the first class was focused upon breath. Our second class, we learned about the head, tail, or spinal patterns, the head and the tailbone, the two ends of the spine, and everything in between, different ways to move our spine. The third class, we focused on core-distal patterns, meaning movement that goes in towards our navel center or belly button, or movement that radiates out away from that navel center through our distal ends, our fingertips, our toes, our ends of our spine, and even you could think about it as our skin or our outer layer and our most inner layer. Then we learned about, or remembered rather, the body half pattern. So that was when we divided the body in half laterally. So one side of our spine, and then from the other side, other body half from the spine. And then last week we focused on the upper lower pattern. So that would be anything above my navel center and anything below my navel center, and how you can support with one part of the body and another. So that's a mouthful, and just giving you that overview in that sense. We're going to walk through each one of those and spend about hopefully about 8 minutes on each one, and that should take us through most of the class. And then at the end, we'll each time we'll be building a little bit of movement, layering different movement in. So okay, we're going to be reconnecting to the pattern first. We'll be playing with rhythm second, and remembering and repatterning third. So with each one of those patterns, we'll kind of go through that cycle. And then at the end, we will put our exploration together into a dance. So sounds like a lot. We're going to give it a try. Okay, so the first pattern that we'll work with is breath. So we've done a lot of different exercises in this class using breath. We'll just return to one of the most basic, which is stillness and movement on the inhale and exhale. So let's start with stillness on our inhale and movement on the exhale. And of course, the stillness is dynamic. We're never totally still as long as we're alive. So having that idea of stillness as you inhale and movement on the exhale. So allow you to explore your space, and I'll explore mine. We'll do this for just a minute or two, and then we'll switch. So as you're doing this movement, we'll just begin by allowing yourself to explore. But also just to pay attention to the movements that you're enjoying the most. Okay, so take some time with this idea of being still on your inhale and moving in any way that feels good to you on the exhale. And we'll begin for about a minute or two. And as you do this, just remember your movements can be big or small. You can watch the screen for inspiration or not. So really feel free to let this be your own exploration. But for now, stillness on the inhale, movement on the exhale is the only invitation. So can allow that part of the exploration to transform a bit. And now we're going to be trying to just reverse that. So allow yourself to continue the exploration with your movement this time on the inhale, any type of movement that feels good to you and nourishing. Moving on the inhale and some kind of dynamic stillness on the exhale. You can explore the space around you. Again, we'll just do this for a couple of minutes to warm up to our connection to our breath. Some kind of stillness on, movement on your inhale and dynamic stillness on the exhale. And enjoy these birds and the soundscape around you. Feel free to make sounds, to hum your favorite song. You can play some of your own music if you'd like, or just enjoy the soundscape around you. So moving on the inhale, dynamic stillness on your exhale. Paying attention to the movements that you are most enjoying. Okay, and allowing that part of your exploration to come to a brief pause. So next, we will, let's see, I'm just thinking here. Okay, so allow yourself just a few moments to return to this exploration and repeat just quickly a few times, perhaps 3 or 4 times. Allow yourself to repeat one of the movements or one kind of set of movements, perhaps an inhale and exhale cycle that you really enjoy. And it's okay if you can't remember something exactly from this previous exploration, but see if you can just from that and from this moment, just repeat one of the movements that you enjoy or recreate some new movement that you can enjoy doing right now. Just repeat it for yourself 4 times. I'll do that too. I'll just take even shorter time to just do that so you can remember something, repeat it 4 times. So just take a second to kind of think of something, feel that through your body, and repeat it for yourself 4 times. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to repeat those movements 4 times. Don't worry if you didn't get to it perfectly, but just have that, keep that in the back of your mind. We'll return to it. So next we're gonna just move on to reviewing our spinal head-tail pattern. And again, if this is your first time in our class, the spinal head-tail pattern, it's just going to be a way to remember that connection within us that we have been learning and moving through our entire life. So just to give us a little review, you can begin by bringing your fingertips to those bony landmarks behind your ears, the atlas, where the spine connects into the skull, and just can give that place in your body a little massage. And also through your own touch, you can begin to wake up the rest of your spine. So just through a gentle touch, just see if you can connect through your own spine, as much of it as you can reach through your fingertips, just in a gentle way, allowing yourself to give yourself some feedback through your own touch to your spine. You might shift a little bit as you do this to a way that feels comfortable, exploring the shape and the bumpy nature of your spine, all the vertebrae in your spine. And then eventually you'll reach your tailbone, and you can find that place as a similar place to the atlas, 2 ends, the head and the tailbone. And so in this just next few moments, we'll take some time to explore the movement in your spine and the connection between your head and your tailbone. So you can use your touch as you do this, but allowing yourself to explore what feels good in your own spine. You can do this in a really subtle way, even from a seated place or lying down. You can also, as I'll be doing, move through the space and be exploring the range of your spinal motion. But allow this next exploration to be focused on your spine and the connection between your head and your tail. You can do that through the touch and through the movement. And again, focusing on movements that feel good to you, that you enjoy. We'll take a few moments to explore the head-tail spinal connection. And as you move, you can experiment with leading movement or initiating movement from your tailbone or from your atlas, this place right behind your head, as if, excuse me, right in the back of your head. Again, you can use your own touch to help you find those places and connections. You might also feel inspired to initiate movement from other places in your spine, like I'm trying out right now. Again, this is not about copying me or following what I'm doing, but exploring your own connection to your spine through your own touch and through your own movement. You can also experiment with what it's like to have a stable spine versus a mobile spine. A spine that is staying connected as one unit versus all these different segments that could happen through your spine. So a stable spine, by that I mean sort of one, your spine is moving as one. So maybe one way to explain it, as one whole. And then if I have a more mobile spine, I'm thinking of where my spine, it's still a whole, but I'm making different patterns with my spine rather than keeping my spine as one fluid or as one more sort of solid connection in my spine. It's hard to explain, I'm realizing as I do this, but once you feel it in your own self, you will hopefully have your own sense of that connection in your spine. And of course, as you're moving, your breath is supporting all of your movement. You can allow yourself to experiment and explore in different rhythms through your spine and the head-tail connection. As you move your spine, you might notice how your head and tail can come together through the spine. And you can bring that part of our exploration to a close. And this time, we'll just take a moment and see if you can remember or review that first pattern that you repeated 4 times using your breath as support. So Should be just one or two simple movements. I noticed when I was doing that myself, I was kind of trying to connect the piece that we had done with stillness on the inhale or exhale with my movement for breath. So don't worry too much if there's a stillness and a movement on which it is or anything. But just for that part, just make sure that you are breathing and noticing your breath as it supports your movement. So for the first breath piece that you did, you may have done stillness on an inhale or exhale. That's great too. Okay, so just take a little moment to remember one of the spinal movements that you just enjoyed exploring, head, tail, and spinal, and as well as the breath. And then we'll just put those two pieces together. So beginning with going back to remember the breath, you can repeat that movement 4 times again, and then allow yourself to move into 4 repeated movements, the same movement repeated, something that you enjoyed with your spine. So we'll just take a few moments to put that together. If you can't remember exactly what you did, don't worry too much. But something with your breath, something with the spinal head tail movements. And we're always building on each one. Okay, so hopefully you have some movements now for the breath pattern and the head tail spinal pattern. So now we'll take a moment to review and remember the core-distal pattern. So core-distal patterning would be movements that radiate from our navel center out to our distal ends. So the distal ends could be the 2 ends of the spine that we worked with. Those could be 2 ends. So the tailbone and the atlas here can be 2 ends, distal ends, our center, navel center, and then our fingertips, our toes can radiate away from your navel center and collapse in towards your navel center. And that's the most simple way to experiment with that pattern. But of course, you can focus on one distal end or the other. You can focus on a connection with your toes, bringing your toes away from your navel center and your toes toward your navel center. You can work with this pattern kind of in an energetic way as well. If you're in a more still or recuperative state, you can do this while you're sitting down, just imagining yourself expanding and contracting. It's really great to notice your breath, how that's naturally a core-distal pattern. As we breathe in, we fill up, and as we exhale, we contract. So take some time to explore the potential of that pattern in the space around you, whether you're sitting, standing, or lying, core-distal patterning. And again, noticing what you're enjoying about this pattern, the kinds of movements that you're enjoying. And perhaps you're getting the idea that after we explore, we will remember and repeat one of the movements. So you can be thinking about that as you experiment. Feel free to sound, sing, or enjoy the soundscape around you. And of course, as you're doing this, really allow your breath to support your movement. And you can do that just by noticing your breath as you're moving. You could focus on a particular distal ends of the spine, perhaps, are really interesting. You could focus on one of your fingertips or one of your toes, just coming into your center and away from your center. And you can allow that part of your exploration to come to a close, or just a short pause, I should say. And then we'll go back and remember and repeat the breath, your breath movement, followed by your spinal exploration movement, followed by your core-distal, something new. So I would just go back and start with your movement that you had for breath. If you don't have one or you can't remember it, it's okay. Create a new one. So breath, followed by your spinal head-tail movement, followed by a new, repeating your core-distal favorite movements. And allow yourself to repeat each breath 4 times, spinal head tail movement 4 times, and then followed by the core distal movement 4 times. So take some time to do that, invent that, and allow it to just, as much as you can, allow it to arise spontaneously, so you don't have to think too long or hard about it. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to put those movements together. And we'll move right into body half, or review of the body half pattern. And again, paying attention to what you're enjoying about this pattern, allowing your breath to support your movement exploration. And again, doing that simply by paying attention to your breath as you're moving. So the body half pattern to review would be as if you could imagine your spine moving, being a dividing line in your body. So the spine dividing yourself in half this way. So here's one half, and here's the other half. My coat actually that I'm wearing does this very nicely for me. One half and the other half. And you can think about it in terms of your shoulder and hip, or even closer within this really subtle space close to your spine. And this pattern often works with stability and mobility. So if I'm stable on this side, then I can move this side. And if I'm stable on this side, then it allows me to move this side. So just take some time to explore that pattern, and I'll be doing that with you. If you feel like looking at the screen for ideas, feel free, or allow yourself to explore floor, sitting, standing, lying. Enjoy the exploration, and again, notice what you're enjoying and how your breath can best support you, how you can notice your breath as you're moving. A few moments to work with our body half pattern. Again, you can allow yourself to do this pattern in a very subtle, relaxed way, or you can really experiment with a bigger range in this pattern and work with your shoulders and hips as kind of a focus area to focus from. Sometimes using your arms and legs can really highlight the different halves of yourself. You can also imagine one half perhaps as a wing. Allow yourself a few more minutes to explore this pattern with their breath as your support system. Allow this part of your exploration to come to a pause. And as we've been doing with the previous patterns, return to your exploration, focusing on one of the movements that you can remember, or perhaps create a new one in this moment. But first we'll go back to breath. So go back to your movements that arose from breath and repeat those 4 times. That will go into your head, tail, spinal favorite movements 4 times, followed by your core distal favorite movements 4 times. And then what's been happening as I've been moving, I just try to allow yourself to think body half next and see what comes out of you right in that moment as you've done all the previous patterns. And then repeat it 4 times. And just one thing to mention is really allow yourself to let this evolve. So even though you're repeating something, don't worry about repeating it exactly right every time or exactly the same. Every time you do it, allow the pattern you're expressing, the movement you're expressing to become more comfortable and more enjoyable for yourself. So allow that to be your guide. And if it changes, the repeated movements change, that's okay. So go ahead and give that a try. And we'll meet back here in a moment. So 4 movements of breath, 4 movements of head, tail, spinal, 4 movements of core distal, and then let your body half pattern come right out of that. Okay. 4 of each. Okay, and bringing that part of your exploration to a close, I realize you might not be exactly on the same pace as me. So if you're finishing up, that's great. Or if you're done way before me, that's great too. If that happens and you want to just keep repeating until we all catch up to each other. So next we'll take some time to review our upper lower pattern. And just to remind, that is our pattern that relates to, again, to our navel center. And if our navel center is here, anything below that would be lower, and everything above that is upper. So thinking again about stability and mobility. So we can have stability in our lower body so that we can move freely in our upper body, or stability in our upper body that helps us support lower body movement. When we reviewed this pattern last week, we also worked with the concept of simple ways of going upside down, even something reversing the direction of my arms. Like just raise my arms above my head is one simple way to go upside down. Bringing my head below my heart, or perhaps even below my belly button, would be another way. And So take some time to explore the stability and mobility in your upper and lower body. And just notice as you do that, your breath, and notice perhaps where your stability, where you're using stability and where you're using mobility, whether it's your upper body, above your navel center, or below. And just take some time with that pattern. And again, notice what you're enjoying and notice your breath supporting you. Okay, so again, you can bring that exploration of upper lower to a brief pause, and then we'll return to our movement pattern that we've been building through this class. So again, remembering going back to the breath, spinal movement, head, tail, spinal, followed by core-distal, followed by body half, and then allow something to arise from the upper lower pattern. Again, start with your breath, repeat 4 times each movement, 4 times. And if you don't remember, again, try not to worry too much about it and allow something to come out of you that reflects the pattern and is enjoyable and supported by your breath. So we'll begin 4 movements of breath, 4 movements of head, tail, spinal, 4 movements of core, distal, 4 movements of body half, and then out of that comes upper lower. And we're gonna stop there. So don't worry, there will be nothing to remember after that part. So let's just go ahead and repeat that in your own space. And then we'll return together for our last little activity of this class. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to finish that series of movements. And we have just a few more moments of class. So just gonna give all of us some time to go ahead and review your combination a few more times so let's just go ahead and we'll do it one more time. So allowing your breath to support you. And as you repeat it this time, again, just allow yourself to modify the original movements so that they serve you in this moment. That might mean allowing them to be more vigorous. It might mean allowing them to be more subtle or more relaxed. Allow the movements to shift and transform and to inform and inspire you in this moment as you repeat this pattern one more time. So you'll do 4 repetitions of each pattern: breath, head, tail, spinal, core, distal, body half, and finally upper lower. All the while your breath supports you, and you'll notice as you do this how all the patterns support one another. Okay, so take a time to do this pattern one more time. And you can again allow your exploration of movement to come to a close. So you've created a short dance using some of those patterns that we've been reviewing and learning throughout the class. And I hope that you will feel welcome and inspired to return to your dance throughout this week. Perhaps repeat it, remember it, renew it, work with different rhythms or different emphases as you explore and play with this series of patterns that you made. And when you return to it, allowing yourself to really enjoy the movement that's available to you in the moment. So it might be slightly different than what you just did, and just allowing your dance to adapt and serve you in the moment. So I hope that you'll return to this dance throughout your week, and perhaps even once per day. That's a gentle nudge or invitation, and I will do my best to follow my own advice and practice this short dance to help reconnect and remember to some of these patterns that we've learned so far. So thank you again so much for coming to today's class and sharing your generous participation and reconnecting to yourself in this way through movement. Again, if you'd like to support the studio and the teachers during this time with a financial donation, you can do that at supportbydf.com. But again, we're grateful that you're here and participating freely as well. So we'll just close our class with 3 breaths together, and in appreciation and acknowledging our experience of this moment, these moments. So you can just allow yourself to be in the most comfortable place for yourself, and just allow your breath to come and go on its own timing. Maybe we'll do a few more than 3 breaths. Just allowing yourself to reconnect to your breath as a way of cooling down. Just noticing where your breath goes in your body and how it leaves your body. Just allowing your breath to come and go. If you'd like to have your eyes closed, that's welcome, or you can also keep your eyes open. Just allow your eyes to be soft, your gaze to be gentle. Just allow yourself to breathe in and out on your own timing. You can allow your eyes to gently open if they were closed, and perhaps allow yourself to smile or give yourself a hug of appreciation, something that will just help you close this practice. And I did just remember that I suggested you get a journal, and we didn't end up using it through this class, but I would suggest taking a moment after the class is done and drawing and or writing down the movements in your pattern so that you can remember and return to them more easily in the future. And perhaps just doing any other reflective journaling that you might feel the need to do after this experience. So thanks again so much for joining, and look forward to seeing you next time. Blessings and take good care.